Well, I was a child when this case happened, and I remember the hoopla around it, and it always intrigued me because it was the sort of situation where everything looked idyllic on the outside. I grew up in LA, and I knew the area, and to have something this intense and horrific happen, and you experience it as a child, but now as an adult, I can sort of relive it with all the details and figure it out. It's a completely different level of dealing with it. Well, I'm a mother now, and as I said previously, experiencing this case as a child and understanding the magnitude of what it was at that level, as a child level, was different. Now I'm much older. I'm a mother, and when I revisit this case from a mother's point of view, it is such a much more compassionate point of view for the Menendez brothers, and that's why I wanted a chance to be able to explore that level of it. Well, it's interesting, having been alive when this happened, I realized how we approach life and emotions and psychology is completely evolved. So we hadn't been, for lack of a better term, Oprahized yet. We hadn't really explored why people did what they did, the human dynamic, the psychological aspect of it, the emotional aspect of it, and I think that's what makes this project so rich, because we really explore that. It's not just a documentary on the facts that happened. It's actually why it happened and what causes people to do what they do. Right, well, in the 80s, it was very superficial. It was success. It was yuppie time. It was like greed, and so that's sort of what the prosecution was aiming for. And my character playing their aunt has always been a huge champion of them. I remember when I saw, like, they only let me see the preliminary scenes so I could go and have a meeting, and she was always a champion and an advocate for them. And as a mom, she approached them as human beings and wasn't caught up in the sensationalism at all, which is, as a mother myself, I think that component was completely left out in the 80s and early 90s when they explored it originally. Well, the great thing about this project is that it's from the point of view of the boys, and it's the Menendez brothers, and it's not just the external facts, it's like the emotional facts that happen to them. And I sort of think of human beings as like recipes. If you put in a lot of bad ingredients, you end up with a horrible result. If you put in love and nurturing and acceptance and support, you get a very positive result. And these kids did not get any of that. The Menendez brothers, from their point of view and exploring that, it's a very complicated case, and it's sad. It's very, very sad. The show takes place late 80s, early 90s. A lot of my clothes are vintage. These are actual vintage clothes that feel vintage. They're not as comfortable. It's just so different how we lived back then and what people wore, and the hairstyles that take forever. We're so much more relaxed and casual and authentic, and back then it was very much affected, which also informs the piece. The clothes are incredibly uncomfortable. There's lycra and latex. I don't think they were invented yet. It does really transform you, the way you stand, the way you sit. How tired you get and how the clothes don't breathe. It was very much, it's all of the era. It all informs the character and the project.